Following the unfortunate closure of Ark in Austin, Redfall has received recently its fourth and final main update, and the game has never looked any better. I'm gonna go over a bunch of little aspects and details that make me really love this game, and I just keep on coming back to it. The ambience on this game is really well made, and everything lingers around an awesome sound design as well as visuals and aesthetics that really make it pop. If you ever take some time to just walk around the town whenever you're not in a fight, you'll notice the sound design is really well made. All those sounds I hate to make you feel like you're not alone, and yet maybe you are, but you can never be sure about it because you hear distant gunshots, you hear creepy music going on, creepy sound cues, and you've got that ambient music that really reminds you of the situation you're in. Just take a listen. Sound design makes everything in a game. It cannot be overstated. And add that to the lovely crafted fishing town aesthetic and all the different visual ambiences like the lighting, the darkness, the vampires having that red glow with all the crystals, the red mist and all that. Bring all that together and you have an amazing experience in terms of ambience. So when you're in Redfall Commons, which is the first area in the game, you will only have like one gang of cultists to fight. It's the cultists that worship the Hallman. That really introduces you to how the cultists work, you know, all that. Like they're just like these little minions that accompany the vampires or operate on their own. It's like the standard enemies. But when you reach Burial Point, you will notice that there's actually two gangs of cultists that are fighting each other. And that gives an additional layer of fun because now not only can you encounter cultists that will try to kill you, but you can encounter cultists that will try and kill each other, so you're thrown in the middle of a battle that's already taken place without you. And it adds even more ambience to the world, because you feel like for once the game doesn't revolve around you, there's already stuff taking place and you're just becoming a part of it by stepping into like this battle and all that. The game can be enjoyed in both solo and multiplayer. I found that you actually have quite a different experience when you play either alone or with other people. Because when you're with other people, you know they can have your backs in case you ever get hurt, so you can like be a little bit more daring and like really go to town with your abilities, weapons and all that, just rush into the action. Whereas when you're playing solo, obviously you can't rely on teammates to revive you, so you're gonna be a lot more tactical about how you approach the game. Now I found is actually quite a nice difference in game experiences. The character abilities, well, some of them could feel a little bit, you know, you could ask yourself why they're here, are they even useful? But the more I played with the game, and I can say that because I've got over 10 days of playtime on it, the more I played with the game, the more I realized that actually all of these abilities that the different characters have, they're all good in their own way. You've got Ren, which has all of this, she could be considered the healer in the group, whereas Jacob would be considered the stealth assassin and all that. And all of these characters have abilities that even if some of them could just feel like they're here for support and stuff, and that they would depend on being with other people, when you play in a single player situation, you'll always feel like these abilities can give you the means to defend yourself efficiently. Like you can actually use them to reliably keep getting yourself through the game alone without needing other players, and that I think is a very good thing about these abilities. The fact that not only are they awesome to combine with other characters' abilities in multiplayer, but the fact that you can also use them in single player to basically progress through the game as you would, and all of those abilities are already great on their own, but they're even greater when you're with other people. I think that's just a great combination. One of the main complaints about the game at its launch was that enemy encounters were very few and scarce across the map. That, I'm happy to say, is definitely not the case anymore. Last time I played with my partner, we literally came across enemies in every corner. They've kept on sending more at us. They were reinforcements, they just came out of the corners and all that. We were always thrown in the middle of action. In fact, I would say it's even the times when we did not have enemy encounters that were getting scarce, because enemies really give you that feel that you're outnumbered, they're all over the place and they're out there. You would literally need to take paths that are completely separate away from any major roads or streets or anything to really try to avoid enemy confrontation. And now that they've added even more like custom encounters with roadblocks and such, you really get a feel that your enemies have a strong presence all over town, and you're not going to get bored because there are always more enemies to come at you and give you that challenge. Game Update 4 brings a newly revamped neighborhood system. Each of the neighborhoods in the game has its own safe house that you need to find and secure. Through the game's story, if you want to fight and tackle the vampire gods that are basically ruling over a specific region, you will need to collect underboss scores, which can be obtained through achieving safe house missions. And the safe houses are actually, in my opinion, a really good addition to the game. They give you some extra little missions that are always a little bit different than the main story missions, because the story missions have their own storyline to follow, their own custom objectives, and the safe house missions are more of those repeatable missions that always feel nice to do because of the way they play out. All of those missions are fun to do. You've got missions like luring enemies over to you and then by waves, and then try and take them down together while hiding in the corner in an ambush. You've got missions that are about trying to defend a crystal against that certain type of explosive enemies called bloodbags that are trying to go to that crystal and nourish it with their blood. Because if you let too many of them reach the crystal, then you will empower the vampire that's trying to grow inside it. That gives you a little bit of a tense objective, especially when the bloodbags all come in fast and you have to really spread out your defense in multiple directions, because they're not just coming from one corner, they're coming from every corner at once. You've got missions that are taking you to those giant trees that are called blood trees, and you have to basically gradually destroy it by defending yourself against an onslaught of vampires until one of the tree hearts gets exposed and you stake them. You move on to the next and all that, and after you've destroyed all of these, you have the boss coming at you, and it's like that final fight that you have to do in order to destroy it. You've got some simpler missions that are about trying to disrupt a cult gathering. At a specific point where they've installed an effigy, you need to burn down the effigy by exploding it on its 3 weak points. And you have just these cultists that keep on coming back at you until you've destroyed it. And that also makes for a nice little defense kind of scenario, because you need to hold your position until the thing is destroyed, while also monitoring the cultist activity so that you don't get outnumbered and overrun. And once you've finished all of the first submission in the safe house, you will get to tackle what is called an underboss. Some people have complained that the underbosses are too easy to kill, but it's in the name. The underbosses are not meant to be like actual large bosses. If you want these, I'll talk about the NES in just a few moments, and you will definitely get happy with how the NES handle their bosses. So the underbosses, I think I really like the way that they brought into the game, because each of these underbosses has its own location, and sometimes it's not about fighting the boss itself, it's about the way that this fight is handled. Like for example, if you take like the Billy Fetch boss in the Burial Point, this is one of my favorites, not because of the boss itself, but because you're thrown in a situation where you have got like all of those cultists all over the place. You are swarmed, and it just makes for a really giant and chaotic battle. And that was just lots of fun to go through every time we did that boss. You've got that other boss in Burial Point where you have all of these little cultists fighting each other, and you have loads of enemies coming from everywhere, and you're just thrown into a battle that's already taken place. And it's just really hilarious to go through. You've got so much action left and right. Like all of these little underbosses, they're either going to be alone and it makes for an easy fight, or they're going to be surrounded by cultists that are either defending or attacking, and that makes it so that all of the bosses have like their own little identity. The game has a nest system, which are dynamic events that take place all across the map that you're currently on. These nests basically have an area of influence around them that gradually increases if you just leave them be and don't interact with them. Basically, in that area, the vampires that are caught inside it are empowered And you, whenever you go inside of that area, you will feel that your vision is getting a little bit reduced, darker. And so these nests, you've got two options. You can either leave them be, but they'll make everything harder as long as you're inside of them, which can interfere with certain safe house missions, for example, or even your main missions directly. Or if you choose to destroy the nest, go inside and really tackle it, you will see the interior nest design is really awesome and well crafted, because you've got all of that environment that is really just distorted all over the place, and it feels like a fever dream kind of when you're inside it. It really reflects the vampire aesthetic that the game is trying to go for. You've got these normal nests are colored in blue, and you basically have to fight your way through a bunch of vampires to reach the heart of the nest and then destroy it. And all of those vampires are obviously empowered, but the good thing about these types of nests is you have two ways you can approach them. You can either go in guns blazing as usual and actually try and fight your way through them, which will require a bit of skill, or you can actually try and sneak past the vampires, because in these nests they will be in a sleeping-ish kind of state, and if you're quiet enough, if you're careful enough, you can actually slip past them. And that is a challenge that can be difficult, but if you do it right, you can really feel more accomplished by the way you've handled that nest, and it's actually tied to an achievement in the game that you can get if you manage to fully destroy a heart in a nest without alerting the vampires. The other kind of nest that you can encounter is colored in purple, and it's called an elder nest. It's a new type of nest that came with the game update 4. And instead of fighting normal vampires and then destroying the heart, you will fight an actual empowered boss. This one is empowered and it has additional moves that the others don't have that pose an extra challenge. And these bosses are fun. If you're really tactical about them, you can actually try and keep a healthy mix of UV attacks and dodges, hiding behind the corners, etc. to avoid their attacks or even interrupt them to give yourself an advantage. And these bosses, the moveset that they added to them is really cool, because it really keeps you on the edge of your seat. They're teleporting around, changing directions, they're tossing all of those different long-range attacks at you on top of their already existing moveset. They're spawning minions that swarm around you that can really stagger you if you're not paying attention to them. These nests are just really good, and if you're looking for a boss that gives you a challenge, you have that right there. The character interactions in that game are really nice, and they're one of my favorite parts of that game. It's one of the reasons this game, for both me and my partner, has become a comfort game, basically. So you've got these 4 different main characters that you can choose from. You can pick whichever one you want. They've got their own abilities, their own stats, and all that, but the way they interact with the world around them and with the other characters at the same time is really interesting and funny at times.
This is the last time I'll say this, but it's called a lift, not an elevator.
Elevator is a perfectly fine word that tells you exactly what it does.
So does lift. It lifts you up, and you save 3 entire syllables.
If you're playing alone, you might not notice as much of those interactions as if you're playing with another person or more, because obviously there's so much dialogue that has been put into place that really revolves around 2 characters or more interacting at once together. And these characters, they have some funny dialogue options that they just keep on telling each other whenever they're not in a fight or something like that, to like keep things interesting. They've got little funny lines, they've got some backstory that they tell each other every now and then, and depending on the characters you pick, you will not hear the same thing. Like, even if, like, for example, if you take Layla and Deventer, which is basically one of the funniest character combos you can have Deventer just being all like, making jokes and feeling proud about his cryptid hunt and all that, and just Layla making fun of him at all times because she just kind of cringes at what he's saying and all that. And those character interactions really bring more life into these characters, make them more lovable, and that is just one part of the game that I really love. I've been playing Redfall since it came out, and I literally can say I've never stopped having fun on it. And it's just really sad, makes me sad to see that so many people hate on the game for what it was at launch and all that, and I would like these people to try and give it another chance now that it's received its final update, see what the game has become, because they fixed a lot, and I mean a lot, of the bugs that were there at launch. Of course, it's still not a completely bug-free experience, but the amount of bugs that you can encounter now are really scarce compared to what it used to be, and the game is definitely more fun than it's been ever. You have so much content now, and it just keeps on. You can just keep on having fun for a long, long time with this game. So I've made this video because I wanted to give it some love, and now I just hope you get out there and enjoy Redfall as much as I do.
Get it?